Hi everyone, my name is Chris Headland. I'm the School Director to Teach and Learn in the School of Computer Science, and I'm here with Jen.
Hi everyone.
Jen, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, hi everyone. So I'm so excited to come to you from Boston. So hello from New England to England. So very happy to be here with you. Today we're going to talk about PoseDance, which is a TikTok trainer that I built for you. But just to introduce myself, my name is Jen Looper. I'm a cloud advocate at Microsoft, and I'm on the academic team, which means that we have the privilege of talking to and working with faculty and students all over the world, including people from our Student Ambassador Program, which is currently 3,500 students all over the world, soon to be 5,000. So that's a program that might be of interest to folks listening in. And yeah, I'm on the academic team within Cloud Advocacy, so I'm here to talk about cool things that you can do with technology, not necessarily Microsoft-y things, but sometimes they sneak in. So we're going to talk about a lot of interesting things and fun things that you can do with body positions. And I wore my fancy sweater, so if it starts jingling too much, let me know if it's too noisy. So happy to be here. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and get started then. So you can see my slides? Great, there it is.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, shall we go?
Yeah, go for it.
All right, let's go. Okay, so let's talk about a project that I created called PoseDance, and it's a TikTok trainer. So drop a note in the chat if you would like, telling me your TikTok handle, and I'll follow you on TikTok. I am JavaScript Auntie on TikTok, and I teach little code snippets using some of the cute dances and the cute music. I'm actually I'm really old for TikTok, but I really, really love it. I think it's one of these like amazing apps that has helped us get through this pandemic, thank God. So you can follow me on Twitter as well, or JavaScript Auntie on TikTok. And like I said, I'm a cloud advocate lead at Microsoft. All right, so today's agenda, we're going to be talking about a couple things, and I'm going to add a little piece onto the tail end of this agenda. So let me just talk about what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about what is TikTok, what is PoseNet, and how we built something using PoseNet and TikTok together. We're going to dig a little bit deeper into what PoseNet actually is, because I think it's important when you're using machine learning to understand exactly a little, well, maybe not exactly what's going on, because there's usually a lot of math and statistics behind it that may or may not be apparent, but at least you can get an idea of how this thing was built and how it's being trained. We're going to talk about building PoseDance, which is the application that I build using PoseNet plus TikTok. And then I'm going to attempt to dance. So a fun fact, I'm in my cloffice. This is a closet. So this is exactly how much room I have. And I can almost touch the front, and I can definitely touch the back. So if I'm wiggling around, we'll see what happens. And I'm hoping not.
I'm really hoping you don't dislodge your plants as you start dancing.
Yeah. If there's a plant casualty. We'll see what happens. So we'll do a little dance and see how this thing works. And then I want to show you something that I've been building using another variation of PoseNet. PoseNet is for body poses, but there's also a hand pose library that's really fun, and I've built something on top of that. So I want to show you that, and I would love to just interact with you and get your feedback on where I should go with this project. All right. Okay, folks, what is TikTok? TikTok is the greatest mobile app ever. It was built originally as Musical.ly. The little kids got a hold of Musical.ly and started building little music videos for themselves. I remember when my daughter discovered Musical.ly. She's 20 now, so she's kind of that generation who, started with Musical.ly and then evolved into TikTok. She's also on TikTok. But I have more followers, just kidding. And yes, TikTok is a complete and utter time waster. I love it. It's very fun. It's like Vine. I used to like Vine a lot for short videos, little, I think 6-second clips, kind of patched together.
It's brilliant because it kind of this whole kind of new genre of comedy was kind of evolved out of Vine and then just kind of disappeared.
Yes, but I think people realized quickly that you don't have to just do comedy or dancing. There's so much you can learn. I have learned so much on TikTok. Did you know you can take your Instant Pot, you can take the lid of that thing and clip it into the top so that your Instant Pot lid doesn't like drip all over creation? I mean, the things you learn on TikTok, I'll tell you, if you're a cook, you want to be on TikTok. It's absolutely amazing. And of course, it's famous for dances. There's a Rolling Stone article here in the culture feature about how I spent a week on TikTok and like how many hours I wasted, but it's good fun. All right, let's talk about what PoseNet is. So PoseNet is all about pose detection in the browser. And it uses TensorFlow.js, which is great for us web developers because you can use PoseNet with TensorFlow, with a TensorFlow.js implementation, so you can build web applications with this thing, which is great. And you can use it right with your webcam. You can embed video within Canvas, or it can also just look at a still pic. So like, for example, if you have a still pic of somebody doing a yoga pose, then maybe you could identify exactly which yoga pose that is, that kind of thing. People are using it for determining like sports injuries. Like I threw the ball like this, playing baseball or playing cricket. This is how I threw out my back. Well, it's because you were twisting this way maybe. So, you know, this is kind of thing.
I have a fantastic video when I was 16 in a kickboxing competition. You can see the absolute moment of a very painful injury, you know, by watching. It's because obviously, you know, when you're capturing things by frame, but this was just fantastic that one frame just got the injury bang on. It was,
yes.
Yeah. I want to show my little baby boy one day.
Yeah, put PoseNet against it and you can see exactly where your back goes like that, you know, like, oh. So what it does is it just gives you estimations of 17 key body points. So it's 5 for your face, shoulders, elbows, wrists, hip, knees, ankles. That's it. So those are the 17 body points. And it's your job to create the skeleton, these lines that you see, it's your job to create that on a canvas. So you can use the Canvas API. So it's not like this thing works completely out of the box. There's some code that you need to write to customize it the way you like it. So that's just one thing to remember. Oh, and PoseNet can display one or more persons, which is nice. Whereas the hand version of this, which actually hands are even more complex than bodies because every single joint has to be captured. I think there's 21 positions. So it was too much to do 2 hands, which is unfortunate for my project, but we'll talk about that later. Okay. And here's an example of the output that is generated by PoseNet. It basically tells you the position with X and Y Cartesian coordinates, tells you what part we're looking at, left eye, right eye, and gives you the score of certainty of how sure it is that it's looking at this thing at this place. Okay, here's where we get to dig a little bit deeper. So what's going on under the hood? PoseNet was built on top of Person Lab models, right? And Person Lab was a new way of determining people's stances and their actions in a video or photo. And previously, the idea of finding people in videos or in images was a top-down process. So you would just create a bounding box around where you think a person is, like in this image here. You know, we're pretty sure this is a person, he's at this position. But what these projects wanted to do, what Person Lab and PoseNet chose to do, is a bottom-up without a box around it. So it's a bottom-up, fully convolutional determination predicting the relative position of those 17 key points. So it's looking for all those positions on the body and placing the key points, figuring out the most confident detection. So it's working its way up based on trained body poses as opposed to just giving a bounding box. So it's way more complicated, it gives you way more information. And you can read this research paper on ArcSiv. I'm going to share these slides afterwards so you can grab these research papers. Let's go even deeper. So here we have how this thing was built, how Person Lab was built. And if you take a look at this graphic here, you can see how the pose estimations are happening. And so Person Lab training consists of 2 steps. It's determining the person, whether it's a person, maybe it's not a person, maybe it's a dog, detecting the person and then estimating that person's poses. And the network is trained in a supervised fashion. It's looking for, like I said, the 17 face and body parts using the COCO data set. So it's always good to know what data set the training was done on for these machine learning models. And COCO, that's kind of like looking at people like mowing lawns, people, you know, creating claw offices, and people doing cricket and figuring out what they're doing. So first what's going on is that it's looking for heat maps right here. So in this little box here, it's looking for the heat maps and figuring out short range offsets in the second box down here short-range offsets to identify possible key points. Like it's figuring out, okay, there's a body and here's some heat maps, and let's figure out what the distances are between the parts. So maybe if it's about this much, that's a wrist to elbow analysis. So those are kind of the short-range offsets. And then it's using Huff voting to determine the most precise placement of a key point. Now, Huff voting is really cool because it was invented in 1959, which goes to show you that in machine learning, everything new is old and there's nothing, very little new under the sun, right?
Everything goes in cycles, doesn't it? I mean, you know, I can, you know, when neural nets were first put forward, they were largely rejected by the community, right? It was only, you know, we keep revisiting some of these old ideas.
Yeah, revisit old ideas, which were good ideas because we have a lot more data now. So we can really throw a ton of data that's being scraped and scooped for us to use, which is a good and a bad thing. So anyway, from this Huff voting process, we're creating Huff arrays. You can see here in this box, they're Huff arrays at the top here. And those run alongside the mid-range offsets between determined key points to detect those body poses. Okay, so just a sidebar on what Huff votes are and Huff arrays are. So those are based on the Huff transform algorithm, which is a feature extraction technique used in image analysis and computer vision. And it's designed to find imperfect instances of objects within a certain class of shapes by means of a voting procedure. So it kind of takes a vote, you know, which is more likely to be an elbow and which is more likely to be a shoulder. And like I said, it's invented in 1959. And I believe it's patented in 1962, which is also interesting. So then you're going to use these detections to create likely instances of individual people using long-range offsets to group the person into segmented instances of each person in an image. So you can see how it starts with heat maps, goes to short-range offsets, figures out some mid-ranges, and then it's looking for the whole person and grouping those into segmented instances of a person. And it's interesting when you got a tangle of people, like there are 3 guys here playing baseball, right? This guy's sliding into first, and this guy's going to tag him out, and the ump is right here. So that's a very American.
And that's always amazing, right? Because I'm always fascinated that, you know, these kind of pose estimation, it just doesn't see that as some sort of human centipede, you know, it's centipede, there we are. Because, you know, you've got kind of depth estimation there as well to kind of segment to individual people.
Yeah.
Especially when they're wearing the same color, which has got to be an issue with basketball, baseball uniforms.
Yeah. Well, basketball would be interesting because they move so much faster in basketball, actually. So that would be, now I'm kind of curious if we could feed some video towards PoseNet and see, like, watch Michael Jordan, like, command the field. Very fun. And all of these steps are using a convolutional neural network. So this is a really fun kind of thing to dive deep into and figure out. I mean, it's amazing what people have invented to create something that seems simple, you know, 17 body poses, blah, 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 but there's an awful lot behind the scenes. It's really interesting. And here's another research paper that you can take a look at. Okay. So we talked about Person Lab and how that was created. Let's talk about PoseNet, which is the kind of the next generation of Person Lab. So PoseNet was a project of Google Creative Lab. Hey, from Microsoft, thanks Google. It's all about running real-time pose estimation in the browser, and it abstracts away the complexities of the model that was created in the Person Lab procedure. And it encapsulates the functionality into easy-to-use methods so that we can install this via NPM as a module and use it as part of the TensorFlow models. Like I said before, it accompanies TensorFlow.js, so just the JavaScript implementation of TensorFlow. Drop a note in the chat if you're a TensorFlower, because there's a lot of good stuff happening in this community. I am too. And you can use TensorFlow models in your browser. And it uses the fast, greedy decoding algorithm from that Person Lab paper. So there's a clear genealogy between Person Lab and PoseNet. And again, here's a Medium article at the bottom that you can take a look at. Okay, so we have the thing we need to use to build something fun. So let's build an app, as we web developers say. Let's build an app and let's use PoseNet to compare, how about a dancer's movement to your own? It's comparing your TikTok video to your webcam outlet. It was kind of a leap of faith. Let's just try, right? Let's just try and see what happens. Because It's kind of embarrassing to say that you're on TikTok and have no earthly idea how to do the dances, right? Because TikTok, after all, is famous for its dances. So that's the concept of the app that I decided to build called PoseDance. So before I talk about this, I want to just talk about a little qualm that I had when building this, which was asking myself whether Person Lab, its offshoot PoseNet, or its offshoot that I built, PoseDance, are they inherently ableist? So what is ableism? Ableism is making judgments according to the assumption that everyone has the same abilities. So what about someone who's in a wheelchair? What about someone who has one arm as opposed to two? But the interesting thing about PoseNet and Person Lab is that it doesn't make judgments. It just measures, and it has it just won't show. If you don't have an arm, it just won't show 3 key points. It might show the shoulder, for example, if it discovers it, but it just won't show. It's not going to error out, is what I'm trying to say. So that's kind of an interesting thought when you're creating something like this. Just to make sure that you're not building something that excludes people. I think this is an important thing that we as web developers need to think about.
It's an interesting thing with that, right? So, I mean, this is just my own curiosity now. You're saying it doesn't kind of make those assumptions. If a person only has one arm, it wouldn't show that connection. And I suppose it's the same. We talk about this from an ableism perspective, but also just from good computer science. There's a chance if I'm, doing whatever dance, I might have one arm behind my back, and then suddenly that's not within the camera detection. I always think if you write apps to be inclusive from the beginning, you benefit everyone, and it's not necessarily just about the inclusion element. I mean, I know the best example I can think of this from my life at the moment is closed captioning on TVs.
Yeah,
I've never used closed captioning in my life because I've never had the need to until we had a baby, and then actually it's really useful to be able to turn the TV down and have a closed caption on.
that's
And
true.
I haven't had that need before, but it's benefited my life, the fact that it's there. I always think accessible development is just good development, right?
It is. Accessibility is all about helping everyone just be included and feel welcome and access what you're trying to build. So we always say the more the merrier, right? The more the better.
And there's a really interesting question in the chat, actually. What about disabilities that are more hidden or movement restriction disabilities? How do we count for those?
Yeah, again, it's not going to error out or make judgment, but it would, if, for example, if I'd thrown out my neck and I couldn't move any farther, like my range of motion was limited, then all it would do is just show that range of motion that I was capable of doing. It wouldn't say, and I wouldn't build such a thing saying, you're doing it wrong, you're failing. Now, I do have a score, which we can talk about later. So what I'm doing is I'm comparing the TikTok dancer with my own movements. So there is a scoring capacity, and it's pretty negative for me because I'm pretty bad at this stuff. So so we could maybe return to this concept. What I wanted to do is include dances that show different kinds of people dancing. But yeah, the scoring part of this is the one piece that might be a little bit less inclusive. So yeah, maybe there's some things we can talk about as we go along. It's a good thought. Yeah. Yeah, so here we are comparing your moves via scoring to semi-pro, and able dancers might be ableists, yes. So I tried to make this inclusive by showing all kinds of dancers. Yeah. Okay, great questions.
I suppose that's a cultural thing as well, right? Because I mean, dance is inherently a cultural artifact.
Well, you mentioned that, and actually, because another thing that's showing is the 5 face dots is the ears. So what if you're wearing a hijab? This kind of thing.
Ah, right.
It just wouldn't show, but would you lose a score? Possibly. So there's maybe some fine tuning we can do on the scoring, actually. So yeah, lots of interesting things to think about. Yeah. Anywho, design considerations of building PoseDance. So I had to pick how it's going to be laid out, of course, the basic architecture and the basic UI design. Whether or not I was going to use PoseNet, I went ahead and used PoseNet. But the biggest question of this whole application was how to handle webcams and these very heavy loading models. And fun fact, you've got to have 2 models embedded in the app because you need to have one for the TikTok dancer and one for yourself. So it's a heavy web app. So it's glitchy and laggy, and I apologize for that. I'm going to run it locally and see. You can see the glitchiness, but you know, this is not what I would call production web development. We're just having some fun. Okay.
There's something quite cliche about that. You know, it's I don't know. I've got a warm spot in my heart for some buggy web apps.
I know, full disclosure, it kind of stinks, but that's okay. And I needed to build some kind of scoring. That was a challenge involving some math. There's a leaderboard. And then I wanted to have some kind of back-end implementation. So I needed to find a back-end that would support this front end. And I used PlayFab. If you want to take a look at playfab.com, it was a company acquired by Microsoft, and it's a really terrific game back-end as an engine for games. So we built several games and hooked it up to PlayFab, and it just quickly grabs, a user ID, and it can also enable login, authentication, and handle scoring, which is really nice. And then there's Azure functions that connect the front end to the back end, which is the PlayFab back end. And then we got to find a way to deploy it because everybody is dying to use this app. I absolutely know. Okie dokes. So design and architecture. I'm a Vue.js developer. Drop a note in the chat if you are a Vue person. If not, that's cool. I came from Angular. No problem. All the love for all the frameworks. Bulma. I used Bulma because it's easy with Sass for styling. It gives you a nice grid layout with minimal drama. Vue Validate. I needed to validate the authentication form fields because I have that login and that registration page. Vuex to save user state. Vuex is like Redux in the React community. It's a state library. Axios, very useful to make calls to an API, to the PlayFab API back and forth. And then TensorFlow.js and TensorFlow's PoseNet model are all brought in here. And this is what my package.json dependencies look like.
It amazes me, right? That
I know, right? It's like 3,000 things.
We talk about, like buggy web apps or whatever, but I mean, you literally running TensorFlow through, or elements of TensorFlow through Java. I mean, that's cool, right? I mean, that's the magic of computer science.
Yeah, I thought you were going to go down the road of that's a whole lot of packages for a really basic web app, but yeah, I'll take your take is much better. No,
I love me some JavaScript extensions.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Actually, if I could dodge Sass, I would dodge Sass, but anywho, okay. Great, so using TikTok and a webcam, I needed to have a side-by-side layout analyzing, yes, Elliot, side-by-side layout and analyzing the TikTok MP4 with a webcam output. So I just grab those MP4s. You can actually, on TikTok's mobile app, you can download, if they allow it, folks' video as MP4s, which is really helpful. So I didn't have to rely on some kind of embedded code, which actually doesn't work super well, as you can see in the homepage. And you can't use embedded code with PoseNet anyway. You have to have an MP4 because the MP4 needs to be embedded in a canvas. It needs to be embedded in a canvas because you need to use the Canvas API to draw those lines and the dots. So that's the trick. Anyway, those embeds don't work. Well, they're kind of heavy. So you just grab the MP4. I wanted to also, so I ran this app by my daughter. And she got a terrible score her first try, and she got really mad. So she's like, "We need to have a preview so you can see the dance before you're like live getting scores." So I added a preview, which is like a non-judgmental, just view the video. So that was a user testing thing. Okay, PoseNet. Golly gee, look at this thing. These models are big, and you have to load two. Yeah, so this is where the trouble starts. Look at the 66 megs and the JS heap. It's a lot. So what you want to do is you want to make sure that all of your code is asynchronous. So you're going to be loading the model. Wait. Load the second model. Wait a little bit more. Load the MP4. A little bit more waiting, and then load the webcam. Okay, now you're ready to go. So that was the thing. So we want to have a nice loader widget just running to make everyone feel like something's at least happening on the screen. But yeah, it's heavy. Video and webcam, like I said, asynchronous loading is your friend. So you want to have, like, this is the mounted lifecycle hook. So this is the thing that kicks off before anything is drawn to page. This is where I'm grabbing the video reference and setting up and enabling the webcam so that, you know, the browser can find your webcam, setting up those two canvases to draw the key points and the skeleton, loading up the models, handling the video events so that it's ready when you hit play. Then you can start detecting your poses when it's playing, and then be ready to calculate the score when it's done. So the minute the video starts, or the millisecond the video starts, we're going to start analyzing the difference between your body motion and the TikTok skeleton. So there's really a lot going on in this mounted lifecycle hook. If you look at the code, I will digress for a second. If you go to my GitHub where this code is found, it's jlooper/PoseDance. There's a code tour, which is a cool feature that you could add via Visual Studio Code. So if you fork the code, download it to your local, you can walk through in Visual Studio Code. There's a code tour, and it'll kind of explain all the stuff that's going on. And you'll find that the dance, I believe it's the dance file, where all of this stuff is kept, is enormous. And it would be great to refactor this. So I think if what I really want to do is I want to update this whole thing to view 3 and recreate this whole thing using the composition API, which will break down that file quite a lot. So stay tuned for that. This is going to be a way for me to learn composition API properly.
That sounds like a really good thing to, again, being on GitHub, that you could pull in some open source development community into that.
Yeah. There's some really cool new community-oriented applications and libraries now with Visual Studio Code, and I love code tours because it just walks you through. It's really nice. Again, asynchronously, we're going to start our pose detection frame, and this thing runs every frame of the video, so it's really running quickly. And for each video, so it's loading up the model and it's estimating the poses. And it's appending each pose that it's finding to an array for future scoring, like I was saying. So it's going to be drawing the key points and the skeletons using the estimated location of the key point, and then use that request animation frame API to detect the video keyframes and make things happen every single time the video keyframe switches. So here's where you draw your skeleton. You're going to asynchronously grab your adjacent key points and draw the dots and lines using the Canvas API. So for this project, I had to learn more about the Canvas API than I thought I needed to know. But there's a lot going on here. There's like a begin path, an arc, and fill. That's going to create dots. And then begin path, move to, line 2, and stroke for the lines. It's kind of a pain that you have to draw this thing yourself, but because you're drawing it yourself, you can make it the way you like it. You could change the color, change the thickness, make it dotted, I suppose, whatever you like. Make it wavy. So lots of fun.
Seems like a lot of opportunity for Christmas customizations there.
Yes, you can make it sparkle, sparkly skeletons. And then the scoring. So I gave this talk once, and a community person contributed to the repo saying that it would maybe it degrades too quickly to negative, so he added some math to make it stay a little bit more on the positive. But anyway, what you're going to do is you're just comparing the points that are coming, the key points from the webcam and the video feed, and comparing those and finding the difference here. So this let x's be this and let y's be this, and you're comparing between the webcam and the video. So like I said, it does degrade to negative as you diverge from the video. And the trick with that is that you also need to be at the same height as where the video person is, because it's looking for the X and Y. So that's kind of a limitation of this whole thing. I know I'm going to whack this.
Poor plan. I suppose because, I mean, so even me and you, we've got vastly different kind of optics set up. So, you know, I'm a bit more, but, you know, it's, I suppose you're not compensating for that as such. It's literally just doing an XY point by point comparison.
Yeah, it really wants to find where your X and Y is according to the screen, assuming that it's like middle point is right there. And the other tricky thing with this is that you need to mirror. So the video is going to be doing this, but you need to do this as well. So yeah,
gotcha.
So watch me screw this up in the demos. Okie dokes. So PlayFab, like I said, that's the back end. And that's where you are going to make the calls to grab a person's statistics and add that into PlayFab. PlayFab is pretty easy to work with. There's an SDK that you can use, and it's kind of shockingly easy. You just grab the client title ID and start passing that through every time. So you could actually maybe put this title ID in as a environment variable to hide it a little bit, but yeah. And then I'm using Azure Functions to call PlayFab. PlayFab also creates that leaderboard for you, which is nice. So here's an example of how I have my PlayFab secret key stored in environment variable, and that environment variable is stored in the Azure Static Web App instance that I created. I'll talk about that in a second. So to use the leaderboard, you need to have a secret key, and you're going to build that leaderboard using the PlayFab API, and you're going to use Axios to display it. And then the deployment of this app, it's got to live somewhere, right? So when I released this app, Azure Static Web Apps was brand new. It's been around since build, which was last May. It's evolved a little bit, but it's a really nice place for all of us folks who like to create spas, single page web apps, for us to deploy our stuff within Azure. Thank God, because prior to this, it was really not easy to create spas as Azure, I think they were called Azure Web Apps. Now we have Azure Static Web Apps, and it just works a lot better. And it has some nice functionality. You can store your environment variables in the app portal. You can integrate Azure Functions right here. It's all run via GitHub Actions. So when you're pushing your code to GitHub, the build process will kick in, and the application will be redeployed. I was
about to ask how that links up with the GitHub. That's
what it is. Yeah. So there's that nice implementation. Yeah. And it really does work nicely for Vue.js, VuePress as well. And then there's an AKA link here, try Static Web Apps if you'd like to give it a try. Uh-oh, it's that time, folks. It's time for the demo. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and stop this presentation, and I'm going to share my other screen. So I'm going to try to do just the window. I'm just going to try to do this part. So I have this in Firefox. I tried Chrome and Edge, but StreamYard has one camera, and there we go. And this seems to work a little bit better with Firefox for whatever reason with StreamYard. It does look a little weird. But anyway, so this is running locally on port 8081. I wanted to show it running locally because this has the embeds nicely displayed on the home pages. In production, these embeds are not happy. They don't really come through. But this is the home page, and you can pick the dance that you'd like to dance. As you noted, I tried to get a diverse group of dancers. Of course, we have Charli D'Amelio, because you can't do anything on TikTok without having something with Charli D'Amelio. I like Gabby. I like her style. And Kiki is great. This guy is in a wheelchair, and this guy is a little person. And Addison Rae, you can't do anything without Addison Rae. And then this is the original creator of the Renegade dance, which is impossible, and I'm not going to try to do it. And then this is the 2C slide, which came out just as I was deploying this app, and I like the dance. So although we can talk about the 2C slide and how right foot up, left foot slide, which is the lyrics, is actually referring to the moonwalk, because everything starts with Michael Jackson, as we in Gen X know. Okay, so I'm going to try to do this dance with this fellow. It's going to go ahead, and here it's going to ask which camera. I'm going to say USB camera 2. Okay, so here's my preview button, and here's my play button. I don't know if you can hear. Come on. Okay, so. Okay, what's my score? What's my score? Oh my God. That's so bad.
So minus, that's quite serious.
I told you it degrades so badly, and I think it's because
I thought it was degrading to 0, not minus.
It's so bad. But I think it's because for some reason Firefox is crunching my video in this weird way. So I'm not going to say that I'm terrible. I'm going to say that because Firefox is But anyway.
Yeah, that's my excuse for all my web apps as well.
Here's the leaderboard, if it's going to come through. Here's my leaderboard. Come on. Leaderboard's not coming through on Firefox. Anyway, there's a login situation here. You can also register. I would love for all the cool kids here on this stream to go to AKA MS PoseDance and give this thing a try. So you can see the Azure Static Web Apps doesn't really like these embeds. So you kind of have to guess, but this dance number 3 is this one. So let's see. Yeah. I'm gonna try one more time. I'm so embarrassed. Oh, that's because it's not mirrored. That's what it is.
I'm really hoping for anything that just isn't a minus number.
It was mirroring. It's because I didn't mirror the first time. All right.
I suppose you could. I mean, you could even correct for that. I suppose. So, you know, if you, I think how you would, but it'd be an interesting challenge.
Take the TikTok video and flip it because this guy's coming through properly. Because these words are proper, I believe, at least according to my vision, they are.
Mm.
So you probably want to flip the TikTok, and I'm not sure how to do it. I mean, in Canvas somehow. Anyway, so that is lots of good fun. So I think there's some comments in the chat, and I'm happy to Chris give it a try.
That grading system is savage. I'm amazed it goes like I said. When we said it deteriorated to, I was assuming it was going to 0, but minus. I mean, I don't think I've ever marked some works with a minus, and I think I'd get eviscerated if I ever tried. Are we going to see Chris give it a try? No, Chris can't dance.
I'm sitting in a closet. See, it's good. It's all good. Awesome. Cool. Okay.
Yeah, my dancing kind of ends at irony.
It's good fun. Yes, but you got to mirror. And once you get into the complicated dances, mirroring those things, oh my gosh. Yeah, it's tough. Okay. What I would like to do is stop goofing around with PoseDance. I'm going to close these tabs. And if there aren't any questions about these poses, I would love to try. Let's see. I have the code base for another project, which is called Ombre Menich. I have it available and I have it running. I'm going to try to run it in Chrome and see if my camera will pick up. Let me see.
I'm really curious about the math you're using for the scoring. Actually, I'll have to look at the Git repo behind that.
Oh,
so
yeah.
It's really intriguing because I mean, I through my PhD, I was doing some stuff with crowd simulation. I was trying to create base truths from video footage that we were tracking, and doing that kind of matchup is really interesting. I mean, there's this whole kind of problems where you use zones or exact point-to-point matching, and no, it was really interesting.
I can walk through if you want me to share this screen. Let's see the application window. So this is the massive dance view file. So this is the whole calculate score. So it's a lot. It's been a while since.
Okay, so it's taking the the points from the video and comparing them to the comparative points from the camera.
Yeah.
And it's almost doing like a Euclidean distance kind of metric.
Mm-hmm. And then this is the comparison bit. And then it just makes sure that there's a number here and it's summing them. And it's dividing the sum, that's taking an average. And this is where the community guy made a small change here.
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
I'm a French teacher. I'm not a math person. So, so yes, I would love for folks to come and take a look at the logic behind this thing. There's two things that could be fixed. We could flip that video so you don't have to fight the mirroring. And then, although I think with the webcam, there is a way to reverse the video, although I think I tried it and it didn't work. And then to do this calculation, to make it maybe stop at 0 and say, please try again. That would be easy enough to do. And then it just posts the score so that the leaderboard in theory would pick it up. Oh, I know.
This is a really interesting question.
Yeah, it wasn't. Why does it calculate the video point straight away? Why is that not saved into the video's data somewhere?
If you've calculated those points, you could just store those and reference that data rather than recalculating each time.
Yeah, I want to find the pose detection frame. So here's where it's grabbing. So I remember I'm saving it into an array. I'm saving each X and Y coordinate into an array, and that calculates score at the end, kicks in and just grabs the array and then does the analysis.
This is really interesting. I'm hoping some. I'm going to throw up that banner again with the that's GitHub.
Yep, and then PoseDance is the app, and then there's a link at the top for the GitHub repo. Yeah, and you can walk through.
So it'd be really cool to see some people playing that. So you mentioned another app. Sorry, I rudely interrupted you. So you have another app, or I'm not even pronouncing it.
Oh yeah, sure. We've got plenty of time. Okay, yeah. So the other app I want to show you is called Ombre Manie. You can't say it Ombre Manie. You have to say Ombre Manie. So Ombre Manie is, in the 19th century, was a art form, and it has to do, for us French lovers, ombre is about shadows. So it's about casting hand shadows. And in like America's Got Talent or some of those whatever's Got Talent, some of these shows, you have these folks who are able to do the cool hand shadows and, make up stories on the screen. So I'm very interested in the whole concept of storytelling on the web. And I wanted to show you what this thing is kind of shaping up to be. I hope that it'll pick up the camera. If it doesn't, I'm going to have to tweak the screen. So here is the, okay, I'm going to show this one, and then I'm just going to go to this tab. Can you see Ombre Manie?
Yes, I can. There you go.
Okay. So here we have, it's an interactive spectacle. Let's look at that. And its model is loading. So this is hand poses. And it's picking up the wrong camera. Fabulous. Okay, let me try in Firefox. I don't think, it's weird because it won't allow me to change the camera here. Okay, let me just go to the show. I'm going to open it in Firefox. Whoa, sorry. Firefox. Okay. So what I want to do is I want to create an experience where people are able to come to Ombre Manie, and I've never shown this to anyone ever. Here we are.
Money.
So this is interesting because you can see the video, the webcam is flipped, so this may or may not be a good thing, but that's okay. So what I'm doing is I have my hand casting the shadows.
Oh, wow.
But you can see, we just went over PoseNet, but see how much more complicated a hand is. I think there's 21 points because each little fingy has to, and then I really was working with the Canvas API to get these lines to kind of flesh themselves out and not be like sticks. And to get the palm filled in, and then to cast the shadow, the red shadow. And then what I wanted to do is I wanted to be able to have the ability to record a story so that you could have Little bunny foo-foo hopping through the forest. Do you know this one? Scooping up field mice and bopping them on the head.
South Park, butterscotch.
Something like that.
Try and remember the episode, but yes, I'm aware of little bunny foo-foo.
Yeah, little bunny foo-foo. I feel like there's a hidden meaning, and it's probably not a good one on this one. But this is Girl
In
Scouts.
South Park, there usually is.
Yeah, for me, this is Girl Scouts. We used to sing this in Girl Scouts. So, like, anyway.
Oh, right. Okay, I didn't realize it existed pre-South Park.
Oh, yeah. Anyway, so it would be nice if I could have two hands being picked up, but you see it instantly switches to the other one. But anyway, what I want to do, and I don't think it's going to work in Firefox, but I want to start, when you start recording your story, you know, you would have this whole thing, and then stop the recording, and view my video should pop up into a new window. Let me see if there's no. I want to see if it'll.
Just what you were saying about fleshing out, I actually really like the art style of like the stick hands. I think that's quite cute.
Yeah, but I have it working in the other browsers such that there's a pop window. The window pops, and here we are, the wrong video. And it shows the hand. It shows not the hand, but just the shadow. And then the story is saved. And I would love to get your viewers' commentary on this to see where they think I should be going with this. Would it be useful to have stories that you can record and send to friends and family?
There has been one. Can you share the API link for the PoseDance stuff? So the pose estimation. I'm assuming that's is that the API you're talking about? Just asking the chat.
Yeah, and Marisha, is it the hand poses or the PoseDance Google link? So I'll dig it up for you. If you go to my GitHub repo, I've got a ton of links on there actually, and it's probably
just for the GitHub repo
on the README
on there as well.
Yeah. Yeah, learn more about PoseNet here, and that sends you to TensorFlow models for the PoseNet demos.
So with the stories that you can capture, I'm curious whether you could, you've got this limitation of one hand. I'm curious as to whether you could overlay, so you could record one run through of, little bunny foo-foo, and then could you then, almost like a painter model, drop that into the background and do another recording over the top?
Huh. Yeah, I think you have to have sound or maybe a series of like a cartoon strip. But yeah, I like your idea of overlaying because to get good animals, you really need like two. Like I think like a.
You do the old birdie, can't you?
Yeah, exactly. You can't do a bird. Yeah.
Elliot says it'd be interesting to see if you could record and then use the recording again to add. Yeah, so that's basically what I was just saying. This kind of overlaying. Elliot, great minds and all that. That'd be really interesting. Especially, you could maybe drop in different colors or different shadow depths, and so cool. Because I suppose if you could record enough overlays, you could have this whole tapestry of little hand characters, or even sharing it between people. Have two different puppeteers kind of creating their own. That'd be really cool.
Oh, that would be. And I was just thinking, you reminded me of when I was a kid, we used to do fingerprint creatures. Like you'd use stamps.
Yeah.
And you could maybe make, like here for Thanksgiving, we always make turkeys. So
I've seen the turkey one, yeah.
Yeah, you could have an art API on top of maybe, so you could decorate your hands. I don't know.
Because I suppose that would be really interesting actually if you've created something in another package, to actually say, I want this little turkey head to map to this point, and I want these feathers to map to these points, and really cool actually. It'd be really interesting to see that put in the hands. We've got some really fantastic performing arts people at Lincoln, and putting that kind of tool. So I mean, it's the pandemic, right? We're all finding new ways of kind of conveying creativity.
Yeah, you have to use yourself one way or another. I was thinking greeting cards. I wish your baby was here because I would love to see the little hand. Like, will all the little points be picked up on a teeny tiny hand, you know?
Oh, crikey, yeah. I mean, I keep saying, the amount of there's a whole book I've got called "Experimenting on Babies." It's
Really?
just fantastic. From a computer scientist perspective, I've been thinking about. I was actually telling Jim I was doing some IoT and cloud stuff to kind of monitor baby movements and pick up on interesting patterns. And no, it turns out babies are completely chaotic.
Oh, are they chaotic? There's a new baby monitor that determines whether the baby's about to wake up, and I'm like, oh my goodness. I'm already, you don't get stressed out enough, trying to get them to sleep.
You don't really need to know. Wake up. So where do you see taking that app? What's your kind of ideas for the future with it?
Yeah, I think what I want to do is make it sort of like a greeting card sort of thing, so that you would be able to create a story, maybe with voiceover, that a kid could then package up, save it to Azure Blob storage, and then send it via some kind of service in an email format or something accessible, or like send a link and then you click the link and you can see the show. So it's like you can send each other interactive stories.
That's really cool.
Yeah, so that's where I'm hoping. I better hurry up because I think I have to give this talk in February. So it's not ready.
Brilliant.
So any help I could get, people, I really appreciate.
So, and again, like I say, Jen's got her Twitter account in her handle. So if anybody's interested in getting involved with these projects, do by all means get in touch.
Yeah, for sure.
That's really interesting, Jen. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Good fun. Yeah, we do a lot of cool things on the academic team, a lot of experimental things. And I appreciate that we can tinker around with things like hand poses from Google, and just have fun with it. I think PoseNet has slightly more applications than the hand poses thing. I'm not sure how people are using, like, for what purpose you would use in like an industry hand poses, except maybe in machinery or something.
I've seen fantastic applications where people have done very simple sign communication. So I've seen it's for it's like conference calling. Just having really simple kind of not like say the full kind of American British Sign Language, but some simple things where you can kind of draw people's attention and converting that to text on screen, which has been, really fantastic. But even kind of
spelling.
Yeah, even like user interface stuff with Pose is so cool. I've seen some interesting stuff with faces where people are doing emojis based on, am I smiling?
Yeah,
smiles come up.
Awesome. I think did the emojifier. Yeah, there's a lot of good stuff with faces. Faces are tricky.
Again, being culturally sensitive as much as anything else, right?
Yes, and the training on faces has been, people are using them to determine gender and weird aspects like that, which is super, super sketchy. So I think you have to be a little careful. I shy away from Face API, although I created an Emily Dickinson application whereby you use the Face API in your mobile app and it will read your emotion and assign you a poem according to the sentiment analysis that was given to the Emily Dickinson's poems. But I do a lot with Emily Dickinson poetry.
I think that kind of stuff's really interesting though, when it's not mission critical and the risk of failure. If something, there's no risk of failure because you're not kind of trying to assign. Like I say, that there's been some really. This is getting into the whole ethics of AI, but there was people who wrote apps trying to predict your sexuality based on your facial expressions, and again, gender is a really problematic.
Very problematic.
I can remember that there used to be an app for it was, like Santa Dance and Elf Yourself, and it was one of these things that came out at Christmas, and it looked at your face and said, "Oh, you might enjoy these presents." And it always thought I was a middle-aged woman. Always came up, and I thought, what about my face are you picking up on that? But I mean, that could be really harmful for someone, right? I mean, it's
yeah, and the whole binary that it's either one or the other, like the face API, you're either male or female. There's no they. So it's like
no, there's no capacity for variation, right? It's not, and that's one of the limitations I think that sometimes we have. And again, when we talk about accessibility, I stand by my statement earlier that accessible design is just good design, because it's like building a house that's with doors wide enough for a wheelchair. Okay, you might not wield the wheelchair now, but you might be grateful of that if you need it in the future. People have that house later. It's the same with software. Working from that in the beginning is good, but there are so many kind of blind alleys that you and being willing to accept the fact that you are going to get this wrong, and you can't predict everything. You can just do your best.
Yeah, and I think that sadly people are selfish, and I feel like the Gen X people like me who have been in the software industry for 20 years, all of a sudden your eyesight starts to fail, and you're like, oh boy, I wish this website was accessible. So I just wonder, maybe we're paying more attention because we're the industry is getting a little more aging and more mature, and the young kids are much more interested in this sort of thing than we would have been at that age. I feel perhaps, but anyway.
Really interesting question.
Yes.
What about the handout? Could you create essentially an online beginner violin or other instrument lesson with it? I chose violin because that's the instrument where hand movement is the hardest. Oh, I'm sure some other musicians would challenge you on that.
I'm a violinist actually, so you could definitely get the fingering. You could what would be really cool is if you could predict according to where your finger is on the key on the strings, the sounds, and you could have virtual violin.
It's almost convert straight to like MIDI.
Yep.
That would be really cool.
Air violin. If we could only get that second hand in there, that'd be great.
I'm amazed there isn't an air guitar converter out there. Somebody must have built that by now.
Well, did you see drum pants? You can there's these people went to Shark Tank with drum pants.
Cool.
Yeah, and on that note,
brilliant. Well, so Carl, which I say is a flute player. Fair enough. Well, thank you ever so much for coming along with this talk, Jen. It's been absolutely fantastic. Fantastic. Let's say it certainly opened my eyes. So the opportunities in web apps now. I'm from a generation when I first started learning how to code websites. We were still building table-based websites with GIF corners and things like that. And the amount of stuff that you can actually squeeze out of a web app now is just fascinating.
Yeah.
But thank you for coming along and sharing your insight.
Thanks so much. And please, hop in the GitHub repos, open issues, give me some ideas, and I'll give you credit. So I appreciate it. And follow me on Twitter and we'll have a chat. So thank you. Oh, and come on, JavaScript Auntie on TikTok, don't forget.
Absolutely. Well, thank you ever so much for coming along. Thank you. And hopefully you'll come along again at some point.
Cheers. Have a great holiday season, everybody. Thank you.